In the year 1522, as the ship Victoria sailed triumphantly into the Spanish harbor, it marked the culmination of an expedition that had forever altered the map of the world. Of 5, only this single ship returned, carrying a mere 18 of the original 260 souls who set out to chart unknown waters. Among the many marvels recounted by these weary but triumphant survivors, one tale stood out, so fantastical it strained credulity, an encounter with giants in the remote lands of Patagonia. Magellan's journey, meticulously recorded by scholar and surviving crew member Antonio Pigafetta, was marked by both wonder and peril. Approximately 2 years into their voyage, the crew witnessed an astonishing sight as they navigated the uncharted waters near the Patagonian coast. On the shoreline, seemingly dancing and singing in a language as foreign as the land itself, was a figure. The being, appearing almost mythical, was unclothed, energetically throwing dirt into the air. His size was what struck the crew with awe and fear. He was a giant, far too large to be merely human. Pigafetta's accounts described this moment with an almost palpable sense of wonder. The giant, he wrote, was, quote, so tall that the tallest of us only came up to his waist. This first encounter set the tone for what was to follow. Magellan sent a crew member ashore to communicate peace and friendship. The sailor, undoubtedly trembling with a mix of terror and fascination, was instructed to mimic the giant's singing and dancing. This unusual yet sincere gesture bridged the gap between two worlds, and the giant, initially hesitant and afraid, responded with cautious curiosity. The giant was led to where the rest of the crew could come ashore and give him food and drink. Following an incident in which the giant became so startled by his own reflection in a mirror that he fell down, he led the crew to the rest of his tribe. It wasn't long before Magellan hatched a plan to kidnap 2 giants and bring them back to Spain. He shared various metal trinkets with them, so they wouldn't be suspicious when eventually handcuffed. Magellan spared no time in telling his compatriots of the encounter, and even named the land he had discovered Patagonia, which loosely translates to land of the big feet, although this etymology is disputed. According to the accounts of those on the Victoria, it appears that 2 giants were indeed captured, but perished on the journey home, as did Magellan himself. Further encounters. Some may consider Magellan and Pigafetta's tale to be too outlandish to be true, but there exists an undeniable trend in historical accounts, with many other explorers also claiming to have encountered the towering inhabitants of Patagonia. Other explorers, drawn by the allure of the unknown, eagerly sought these mythical beings, contributing their own experiences to this growing legend. The age was ripe for such stories. In a time when the world's edges were still being mapped, the idea of giants inhabiting distant lands captivated the European imagination. Sailors and explorers returned with varying tales of encounters with these enormous beings, their descriptions ranging as high as 15 feet tall. However, these accounts often contradicted each other, adding a layer of mystery and skepticism to the legends. When Sir Francis Drake visited South America in 1579, his crew reported seeing individuals of significant height, though only around 7.5 feet tall. This stark difference in the accounts raised questions about the reliability of these stories. Were they mere exaggerations, or was there some truth to them? The narrative continued to evolve. Anthony Knivet, an English sailor, claimed to have seen corpses of giants measuring 12 feet in length. Around the same time, another Englishman told of an encounter with natives who towered over his crew. These stories, while fascinating, often portrayed the giants in a menacing light, perhaps reflecting the fears of the storytellers. Dutch sailors also claimed encounters with giants in the following decades, yet, like their predecessors, failed to provide conclusive evidence. Back in Europe, these tales were traded and embellished, often for entertainment. They were so pervasive that contemporary maps of the Americas began depicting Patagonia with illustrations of these giants under the label Regio Gigantum, a warning to those who dared venture into these lands. However, as the modern era approached, the narrative began to shift. A British crew's claim of encountering 9-foot-tall Patagonians was later revised to a more modest 6.5 feet in official accounts. The natives. With rational explanations put forth, the question remained of who these early expeditions had encountered, which group of people had been mistaken for giants, and exactly how tall these people were. The Selknam people, one of the last uncontacted native groups in South America, inhabited the land described in Antonio Pigafetta's account of Magellan's voyage. With an average height of 5 feet 11 inches, they were tall for the time, but not gigantic. Beyond their physical attributes, the Selknam had a rich culture, with unique traditions and beliefs that have largely been lost. Tragically, they faced extermination in the late 19th century due to the impacts of gold mining and farming. Intriguingly, a photograph housed in the U.S. Library of Congress, dating from between 1897 and 1898, shows an exceptionally tall Selknam man who stood at 7 feet 4 inches tall. Another group possibly linked to the giant sightings is the Tehuelche people, native to eastern Patagonia. In the 16th century, when the average European height was around 5 feet 5 inches, the Tehuelche were reported to be between 6 and 6 feet 7 inches tall. While not truly gigantic, this significant difference in stature might have seemed so to the shorter Europeans of the time. The Tehuelche, too, have a rich cultural heritage, though much of it has been eroded by colonization and modernization, with their language now extinct. The Tehuelche are arguably the most likely candidates for being the tribe encountered by Magellan and his crew, and they remain one of the tallest groups of people in the world. Bergman's rule offers a scientific explanation for the Tehuelche's height. This ecological principle suggests that larger bodies are more adept at conserving heat, which could mean that over generations, the people in colder climates like Patagonia evolved to be taller and larger. However, this rule is a general principle and does not account for all variations in human size. Despite these rational explanations, some ambiguity remains. Doubts have been raised about the language descriptions provided by Pigafetta, which do not align with those of the Selknam and the Tehuelche. Pigafetta, known to some modern historians for his penchant for exaggeration, might have skewed the narrative to make it more appealing to European audiences. Another fascinating possibility involves medical conditions like a pituitary gland disorder, which can lead to excessive growth. Such conditions, while rare, have resulted in some of the tallest humans ever recorded. However, these conditions are not typical of entire populations and usually result in shorter lifespans due to health complications. Legacy of the Giants. Due to the respectability of some of the captains who reported having seen them, the legends of Patagonian giants dominated European culture for centuries, enduring for almost 300 years before modern skepticism brought their average estimated height down to some 6.5 feet. During this time, stories of the giants fueled stereotypes and preconceptions of savagery and influenced European perception of South America. Europeans proved initially reluctant to accept that the height of the giants had been exaggerated or inaccurately recorded, in part because they made for such good stories. For this reason, estimates grew as stories passed by mouth and became increasingly embellished. Even today, conspiracies concerned with altered or erased chapters of history have cited the Patagonian giants, along with legends of other abnormally large humanoids, such as the giants of Catalina, as potentially offering evidence of unknown extinct species. Charles Darwin, in his 1831 publication The Voyage of the Beagle, offered a more grounded perspective. He described the Patagonian natives not as gigantic, but as, quote, certainly the tallest race which we anywhere saw. This observation marked a shift towards a more scientific and factual understanding of the region's indigenous peoples. The arrival of explorers like Darwin, coupled with the emergence of modern science, played a crucial role in demystifying these legends. The gradual acceptance that Magellan's tales were likely inspired by encounters with relatively tall natives rather than actual giants signified a transition from an era dominated by myths and legends to one guided by scientific inquiry and empirical evidence. Are you ready to unlock the secrets of the past? Subscribe now to Dark Five's Ancient Mysteries channel and embark on a journey to uncover the most enigmatic and awe-inspiring mysteries of ancient times. Leave a comment if there are any ancient mysteries you want us to explore in upcoming videos.